Abdul Ghani Khan. Now, this guy, he wasn't just Emmy a poet.
Right.
No, he was also a philosopher and an artist, a writer, and a politician.
Wow, that's quite a resume.
It really is. You kind of wonder, how did he even have time to sleep with all that going on?
That's a good question. Yeah, how did he do it all?
I think that's what we're hoping to unpack today.
Totally. And get this, our main source for all this info, just his Wikipedia page.
Really? Just Wikipedia?
Yeah, just Wikipedia. Super accessible, right?
You know, I'm always amazed by how much you can learn from just diving into a Wikipedia page.
Seriously. And right away you could see why he was called the Mad Philosopher and the Ocean of Knowledge. Those nicknames, man, they're something else.
They really paint a picture, don't they? It's
Yeah.
like you immediately get a sense of this larger-than-life character, a brilliant, eccentric figure who just soaked up knowledge.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Khan was born in Hasnagar. It's part of Pakistan now, but this was around 1914. Okay, and here's the thing. His father, Abdul Ghaffar Khan, was actually a super important figure in India's fight for independence from British rule.
Oh, wow. So that family connection is huge then.
Totally. It places him right in the middle of this massive movement for freedom and self-determination. Just imagine.
I know. It's incredible.
Like, what were the dinner table conversations like in that household? Can you imagine? The atmosphere, the discussions that must have shaped him.
Absolutely. And that kind of environment must have fostered a deep sense of social and political awareness from a young age.
You would think, I mean, talk about pressure, right? The follow in those footsteps. But here's the thing. Khan didn't just follow directly. He went his own way, you know? He went to study at a place called Shantiniketan.
Shantiniketan. That name rings a bell.
Yeah. And it was founded by Rabindranath Tagore, the super famous Nobel Prize-winning poet.
Oh, of course. Now I remember.
It was there that Khan got really into art, especially painting and sculpture. Shantiniketan was actually a huge center for art and culture in India during that time. So it makes sense that he would develop such a passion for it there.
Right. It was like a breeding ground for creativity. But then, okay, are you ready for this? He decides to go study sugar technology. Of all things.
Sugar technology? What?
I know, right? It's totally random. And get this, he studied it in England and the United States. And he even worked at a sugar mill when he came back to British India.
Whoa. That's a serious left turn.
It is. I mean, it seems so different from everything else we know about him. So what's the deal with that? Makes you wonder, right?
It really does. I mean, Khan clearly didn't follow a conventional path. Maybe those years studying something so technical actually influenced his creative process somehow. It's definitely food for thought.
Right. Like maybe it was a period of personal exploration or something. We don't have all the answers, but it's interesting to think about.
It definitely adds another layer to this already fascinating story.
For sure. It's like all these different experiences were pieces of a puzzle coming together to create this incredible life.
And that brings us to another big turning point. His involvement in politics.
Right. He did end up following his father's footsteps. He became a big advocate for Pashtun rights.
Okay.
But here's where things get even crazier, even though he ended up stepping back from politics at some point. He was actually imprisoned by the Pakistani government.
What? Why?
I know. For 6 years, can you believe that?
6 years. That's a long time. That must have been incredibly difficult.
Definitely a tough period, but here's the thing. It was actually super important for his writing.
Really?
Yeah, it was during that time that he wrote his most famous collection of poems, Da Pandrai Chagar, which means The Chirping of the Cage.
The Chirping of the Cage.
Yeah.
Wow, what a powerful title.
Right. It gives me chills. Can you imagine finding that kind of creative spark, that strength to write while being imprisoned?
It really makes you question how we define freedom, doesn't it? His spirit wasn't caged, even his body was...
It's super inspiring, that's for sure. Okay, so before we go too deep into analyzing his poetry, I think it's important to give our listeners a little background on his overall work, his legacy.
Good point, yeah. It's helpful to have that context.
So Khan, he's best known for his collections of Pashto poetry, like Panuz, Palwashe, and of course, Da Pandrai Chagar. But he also wrote The Pathans in English, which is all about Pashtun culture and history.
So he wrote in both Pashto and English?
Yep. And his poetry isn't just beautiful language, it's this amazing blend of like Pashtun and Western influences. He was reflecting on life, spirituality, human nature, all that good stuff.
It sounds like he was really pushing boundaries, challenging categories.
Totally. Okay, so I want to share these 3 quotes from Khan about the Pashtuns. They're really insightful. The first one is, Pashtun is not merely a race, but in fact a state of mind.
Whoa, that's deep. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, I think he's saying being Pashtun goes way beyond just where you're born or your family history. It's a way of thinking, a whole perspective on life.
I see, like a shared cultural identity that goes deeper than bloodlines.
Exactly. Like there's this unique spirit, a certain way of approaching the world that defines the Pashtun experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and then he says, the Pashtuns are rain-sown wheat. They all came up on the same day. They're all the same.
Oh, I love that imagery.
Right. It's so vivid, and it really emphasizes this idea of a shared origin, a fundamental unity among the Pashtun people.
Absolutely. He connects them to the land, to nature, which is such a powerful symbol of their shared history and resilience.
Totally. And then, get this, he says something seemingly opposite. But the chief reason why I love a Pashtun is that he will wash his face and oil his beard and perfume his locks and put on his best pair of clothes when he goes out to fight and die.
Wait, really? That's kind of surprising.
I know, right? It seems to contradict the idea of unity and sameness.
It does.
But I think he's highlighting another aspect of Pashtun culture, this deep sense of honor and courage, this commitment to presenting their best selves, even in the face of death.
That's a really interesting interpretation. So it's not just about being the same, it's also about this strong sense of individual identity and pride.
Exactly. And that makes it even more complex and fascinating.
It really does. It challenges you to think beyond stereotypes and easy labels.
Totally agree. So what stands out to you the most about these quotes? What are you taking away from them?
Well, for me, it's how Khan manages to capture both the unity and the individuality of the Pashtun identity. He celebrates their shared roots, but also acknowledges their unique strengths and complexities. He avoids any kind of simple definition, and that's what makes it so compelling.
You know, it makes you realize how often we try to oversimplify entire cultures to fit them into neat little boxes.
It's so true.
But Khan's work reminds us that human experiences are way more diverse and multifaceted than that.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why his work continues to resonate with people from all walks of life. He speaks to this universal search for meaning, for connection, for belonging in a complex world.
So well said. I think this is a good place to pause for now. We've covered so much ground already, from his early life to his artistic journey, and now these incredible insights into the Pashtun people.
It's amazing how much we've been able to unpack just from his Wikipedia page.
I know, right? It just shows how much you can learn if you're willing to dig a little deeper. But we're not done yet. There's still so much more to explore about Abdul Ghani Khan's incredible life and legacy.
I'm excited to see where we go next.
Me too. So make sure to join us for part 2, where we'll continue this deep dive and uncover even more about this amazing man and his work.
So, welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Abdul Ghani Khan.
We were just talking about those amazing quotes about the Pashtun people, how Khan captured their unity, but also all the things that make them different.
Yeah, you know, he really had a knack for seeing things from multiple perspectives at once. You don't see that very often.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Makes you question your own assumptions about the world.
Totally. It's like he's saying, hey, there's more to this than meets the eye. And speaking of seeing things differently, we got to talk about Khan's connection with nature.
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere in his poetry, isn't it? Mountains, rivers, those wide-open landscapes. You can practically feel the wind in your hair when you read his stuff.
It goes beyond just description, though. It's like nature was this, I don't know, this source of strength for him, a reflection of his own struggles.
Like he was having a conversation with the mountains, right?
Exactly. Like they were old friends. And speaking of which, I found this quote on his Wikipedia page. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. He said, "I want to see my people educated and enlightened. A people with a vision and a strong sense of justice, who can carve out a future for themselves in harmony with nature."
In harmony with nature. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It really is. And it feels so relevant today, you know, with all the environmental challenges we're facing.
Totally. It's like he's saying true progress isn't about conquering nature, but learning from it, living with it, not against it.
It's a powerful message. And it reminds us that Khan wasn't just an artist, he was an activist too. He believed in using his voice to fight for what he thought was right.
Yeah, he didn't shy away from the tough topics, did he? Even when it landed him in trouble.
Exactly. Which, you know, makes you think about the role of art in society. Can art really make a difference?
I think Khan proved that it can.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so we've talked about nature activism, but there's another piece to Khan's story that we need to highlight: his role as a bridge between cultures.
You're right. He blended Pashtun and Western influences so seamlessly in his work. Like it wasn't even a thing, they just naturally went together.
Yeah, it's impressive. It makes you wonder what we can learn from other cultures if we just open ourselves up to them.
And I think that's a big part of what makes his work so appealing. He doesn't force you to choose one side or the other. He shows you the beauty in both.
He embraced that complexity, that richness. It's inspiring.
So, as we start wrapping up this part, what would you say are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think it's important to remember that Abdul Ghani Khan was more than just a poet. He was a philosopher, an artist, a political activist, and someone who brought different cultures together. His life, his work, it shows us that embracing complexity, finding beauty even when things are tough and speaking up for what you believe in it matters. It makes a difference.
Beautifully said. And I think it leaves us with a sense of hope, even in the face of all the challenges that the Pashtun people have faced.
Definitely. Khan's story is a testament to the power of the human spirit.
Well said. So stay tuned for the final part of our exploration where we'll delve even deeper into what makes Abdul Ghani Khan such an important and inspiring figure. Welcome back to our final deep dive into the world of Abdul Ghani Khan. I gotta say, this has been quite the journey.
It really has. And we've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
Just from his Wikipedia page. So much to unpack.
I know, right? It makes you wonder what other hidden gems are out there just waiting to be discovered.
Right. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what's Khan's legacy? How is his work viewed today? Does it still resonate with people?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, his poetry has been translated into so many languages, and scholars all over the world, they're studying his work.
Wow, that's amazing. So he's not just a regional figure then?
Not at all. His words, they have this way of transcending cultures. He was really tapping into something universal.
It makes you realize that certain themes, like that search for meaning, connecting with nature, fighting for what's right, they speak to everyone, regardless of where you're from.
Exactly. And his work, it continues to be a huge inspiration for artists and activists, especially in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
So his legacy is still alive and well?
Very much so. His words are powerful. They speak to that human spirit, that ability to overcome.
Especially given all the challenges the Pashtun people still face today.
I was just thinking that. His story is a testament to the power of resilience.
It makes you think, how do we cultivate that kind of resilience in ourselves?
That's the question, isn't it? How do we find that inner strength, that creative spark, even when things get tough?
It's funny, when we started this deep dive, I honestly had no clue who Abdul Ghani Khan was.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've learned so much, not just about him, but about myself too,
I know what you mean. There's something about his work that stays with you.
It really makes you think about the world differently.
It does. It makes you appreciate the beauty in the struggle.
Exactly. Well, I think it's safe to say that Abdul Ghani Khan was more than just a poet. He was a philosopher, an artist, a voice for his people, and a bridge between cultures.
That's a great way to put it.
And for anyone listening, I really hope this deep dive has inspired you to check out his work. Because trust me, it's worth it.
Absolutely. There's so much beauty and wisdom to be found in his words.
Well, that about wraps up our exploration of Abdul Ghani Khan. We've learned about his art, his life, his struggles, and ultimately his enduring legacy.
And along the way, I think we've all learned a little something about the power of resilience, the beauty of complexity, and the importance of using our voices to make a difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop diving deep into the things that spark your curiosity. You never know what you might find.